So, welcome to the weekly live Empowered Consent Conversations. I'm Christina McCabe, and I am alchemizing and facilitating this new culture of empowered consent. And this week, I am joined by my gorgeous guest experts, Chicava Tate, Kelly Lettieri, and Melissa Walker. I'm so delighted to be sharing this conversation with all of you gorgeous beings. And I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves in just a moment. But first, I want to give you all a bit more information about why we are here and how we're going to flow today and what we're talking about. Today, we are gathered to talk about body image and empowered consent. And just to be really raw and real with you all, I've been noticing kind of this little building of grief in my own body as we've getting closer and closer to this conversation today. So it's a big one for me personally, and I want to give you all out there watching just a little bit of awareness for yourselves as well, to honor what you're feeling and what you're needing in this space today, as well as a trigger warning that we may be discussing eating disorders to some extent. So please honor your own self care and what you need today. All right. I'd love to get my gorgeous experts introduced. Who would like to start? Should I call y'all out or someone going to step in?
Okay, I'll start.
Oh gosh.
Get it, Chicava.
Good evening, everyone. I am Chicava Rosalind Tate. It is wonderful to be here with you. I work in the healing space of bringing together sensual movement via my time in the burlesque performance art and Taoist healing energies. I help women synergize sensuality, spirituality, and sexuality, and just unlock the keys to our queendom.
Synergize sexuality and sensuality. Yum. Right? For those of you watching, I just want to give a little bit of a Chicava's Wi-Fi is a little bit off, so we're just going to allow for the space for if there's a little bit of a delay between speaking and what you're seeing on video. I often have electronic issues, so we always have space for that here. All right, welcome, Chicava. I'm so happy that you're with us today. Thank you for joining. Kelly or Melissa?
I'll go. So I'm Melissa Walker, and I am a somatic sex therapist. So I combine body-based modalities in the capacity as a sex and relationship therapist. And I've been in private practice for about 11 years or so now. And my mission in life is to help people get embodied in their intimacy. It's so much more expansive and satisfying and deep and juicy, and we don't have to leave behind our challenges in order to do that. And we don't have to be in a particular body to do that. We can all be embodied in our relationship. And so that is what I do, and I love it. I love what I do.
I love and thank you for being here. I'm so excited that you're here as well. I love the work that you're doing and the fact that you let people know right off the bat you don't have to be healed from your challenges or rid of your challenges in order to be doing this work in a fulfilling way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Right away, Rich. Yum. Kelly.
Hi, so my name is Kelly Lettieri. I am a tango dancer, teacher, performer, and coach, and I help people to connect with themselves and others, to express, to create, to be through the art of Argentine tango. So that's my calling and my journey, and I'm so happy to be here and so honored to be here with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Yum, as a studier. I've studied dance for many years as well. And it's one, I just switched that up. It's one of the ways that brings me the most into my body, and my relationship with my body has gained a lot of healing in my relationships with dance. I'm really happy that you're here, Kelly. And I apologize for mispronouncing your name earlier. Thanks for that.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even notice. Thank you.
I usually try to clarify ahead of time. That's my bad. Oh, well, everyone watching, again, we're talking about empowered consent and body image. I always like to start these by getting you all a definition of what is empowered consent. So I'm going to ask each of you joining me today to let me know what you believe empowered consent to be.
Yeah, I would say empowered consent, the way I understand it and the way I support it in my clients, is that we have a refined awareness of our own bodies, our own desires, our own needs, our own challenges, and that we have a sort of an awake relationship with refining that within ourselves, and that we are practicing the ability of both understanding that within ourselves as well as creating space for a partner to express, both verbally and non-verbally through breath and movement and that sort of thing. But to have an awake relationship with our yeses and our nos and our in-betweens and our maybes and slowdowns and all of that.
Thank you. Yum. Refined awareness and an awake relationship. Yeah, that feels good.
I would say that empowered consent is, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Melissa just said. It's really understanding and being in touch with our desires, with our yeses and our nos in the exact moment that we are in. And I think that there's a partnership in this, of the belief that other people will accept them, other people will respect them when we express them, and also holding the space and accepting other people's yeses and nos when we hear them ourselves. So I think it has a lot for me to do with being in the moment and to truly being with the other person where they are at right now, and truly being with ourselves where we are at right in this moment.
I really appreciate, Kelly, you pointed out the right now and the space. Both of you pointed out the space for others. It's rare when speakers talk about their definitions, or when people talk about consent, that they're pointing out laying space for others' consent as well. And it means so much to me. I think that's integral in creating empowered consent. Thank you both for that. Chicava, what's empowered consent?
Hi. It's starting from the center of self and hearing first, I think, resolving the different voices inside yourself to find what's authentic for you at this phase that you're in, and then expressing it to other people in various facets of relationships so that you can honor your boundaries. And then I think that is too the space that puts you in place to listen to other people's boundaries and needs without personalizing them as for or against meeting your needs. Yeah, and there's something to it in empowering your consent very consciously. You will find yourself in the victim role less and less, because you will say, this is where I'm at. This is what's right for me. These are my boundaries. Having communicated them, if someone is crossing up on them, you have that kind of North Star to move you along from that situation.
Yum, this center of self. I often say higher knowing or higher awareness of self, but I like that wording and that knowing of center of self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
resolving the different voices.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, right? That ability to witness
Mm-hmm.
what's happening within ourselves so that we can choose where we want to
Mm-hmm.
answer from.
And not taking personally.
Thank you.
Yeah, like are we moving? Yeah. Like are we moving from who we are now, or are we getting triggered to consent to things from past selves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how, because we're shifting and we're changing, and people we encounter don't know about our shifts and changes, so they can get
Yeah.
surprised sometimes when there's when the way that was okay is no longer okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that aspect as well of not personalizing,
Yeah.
that's huge because that helps us to stay out of the triggers
Mm-hmm.
of feeling attacked or defeated or any of the stories we can create when someone says no to us or when somebody gives us an answer that's contrary to what we're asking for or desiring.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Not personalizing.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
Right, because we don't want to. I'm exploring a lot right now what we ask out of romanticism,
Mm.
and how it's so set up for us to trip and fumble on it, because we're asking most conventionally one person to deliver at so many levels of our needs. Like no one really nobody can do it. And we call it like shattered dreams and heartbreak and move through all these different things. But what happens if we start to realize that we're asking people for things that we can only give ourselves?
Mm.
Right.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've been more and more adding into, first of all, ditto all of that in my definition of empowered consent. But I've really been liking yeah, I've really been adding in an awareness for ourselves of the areas where we need support with our voices.
Mm-hmm.
I think an awareness of our desires, yes, what we like and don't, what we want, don't want, that scent coming from that center of self, that higher awareness, right? But what about those places that are harder for us, where we're the most tender, where it's the most difficult to speak our voices? I think an awareness of those and the support that we need there in order to be successful in either in navigating those areas for ourselves so that we don't end up crossing our own consent for ourselves or others.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm going to put that bit in with empowered consent, an awareness of where you need support
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of support you may need. I mean, we can't always know what support we need in the moment when we feel tender, right? But
Mm-hmm.
an awareness of having some resources available for us.
Mm-hmm.
Feels good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're talking, I want you all viewers to know as well that though often consent gets associated with intimate sexual relationships, we're talking about empowered consent throughout all areas of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? Definitely yummy, juicy areas with sexuality and very important there. But this is a practice for me, empowered
Everywhere.
consent, of navigating my voice with myself and others and laying that space for others to speak to me as well.
Mm.
It's a constant practice and it offers such richness.
Mm.
Yeah. Yum. So what is body image? It sounds like very self-explanatory, right? But I'd love to hear what each of you are here to when I say empowered consent and body image, when you all saw that and agreed to that this was the conversation you wanted to be a part of, what was body image for you here?
Mm-hmm.
I agreed because I think that there are a lot of places in which society has taught us that our body is perhaps not for us. or that our body is something that can be acted on without consent if we do certain things, if we make certain decisions. So what became really, when I was reading the different things, the different options, this one became very important for me because I am a survivor of anorexia. And I noticed a big part of unpacking that, a big part of unpacking where I'm at today, was unpacking the influences that society had on my view of my body, and where I wasn't always looking at it as my body with its yeses, with its no's, with its ability to feel.
Mhm.
It sounds to me, Kelly, like you're really expanding body image from being a very personalized experience to being something that often is owned by not only us, but the society around us, the things that have the belief systems and the structures in place in some ways own our body image. Does that sound right? If we buy
I
into
think
that.
I think that we are taught that.
Mhm.
I think many, not everybody, but I think that many of us are raised within that idea.
Mhm.
And I think that shedding that idea, locating that idea, and identifying where those ideas have come from can really help us to get in touch with our bodies and with our body, the image of our bodies that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you for that awareness. Beautiful. Mhm. Melissa in Chicago, what is body
Definitely,
image?
women are taught to objectify ourselves. And so our body image, echoing Kelly, we spend the first, let's say 20 years of our lives just feeding in, or before. I think it's different for women coming up now, but at least 20 years going in and fitting into the body image that's mandated. Like, this is the discrepancy, fighting the discrepancy. Sometimes it turns into a body dysmorphia, but you're fighting, like, this is who and how I am. This fighting that what you're seeing in the mirror isn't what you're being told by the media, by your family, by your school, by your government. This isn't the best. This is not as valued. If you don't have, it can be from, the intensity of being of an ethnicity that isn't as safe of a body to be in, to the cosmetics of only blondes are beautiful. And so there's that whole spectrum of just disparity that you're reckoning with, and learning to find your beauty and your ownership of your beauty is the achievement of, I think, positive body image. It wavers, it changes. There's super beautiful feeling days, there's super yucky feeling days, but that the main level is better and better and self-determined.
I relate to a lot of that, that fight, that struggle, right? I mean, I've over my life, I still find myself paying attention to and witnessing if I'm making decisions from a place of trying to see if I am within the structure that's acceptable or not with my own body when it comes to food and exercise and the way I dress, or different aspects of my body image and decisions that I make in order to take that ownership of my body, and just playing witness. Is there a story or a voice that's directing me that's more shaped by others influence on who I have to be or who I need to be, or is it my ownership and who I am that's leading the voice and the decision making right now?
Mhm.
Yeah, that ownership takes time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to unrecord a lot of tapes.
You have to unrecord a lot of tapes, rewire.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah. What all of you are saying is, um, I'm I'm thinking about our somatic architecture. So how we are somatically created and recreated in every moment is that interplay between our experience of ourselves and what is reflected back to us from our environment. Because we also have an impact on our environment that then our environment responds to us. So the people in our environment, the Chicava, like you were saying, the institutional structures, our government, the laws about our bodies, media, all these different things, family, religion, peers, all these different things. And so as we're Chicava, I think you said like our first 20 years and everything that we go through in our first 20 years of life in terms of our bodies really forming and reforming themselves, that, you know, we see young people, and I know, you know, for myself as a young person, trying on different archetypes and trying on different ways of dressing and different ways of doing my hair, and then seeing the impact that what I'm interested in, seeing that impact on my environment, and then how my environment responds to me, that then reforms my somatic architecture, how I inhabit my body, how I move in my body, how I don't move and maybe restrict my movement and my breath. And sometimes there are safe places for us to do that as young people, and for people to say, wow, your hair is so different today and cool, what's going on there? And then there's other places where we get really negative responses. And then how do we respond to that? Do I get smaller because I received a negative response, or do I actually get bigger and that much more loud about what I'm trying on? You know, so it's that interplay between my personality and who I am and the environment that I'm raised in, and that is how we internalize our image of ourselves. And we do that the rest of our lives. I mean, then we get older and our bodies change, and maybe we have babies or we have surgery, or, you know, we do all these different things and our bodies continue to change. And it's that ongoing interplay of creating and recreating how we see ourselves, not just visually, but how all of our senses is included in body image. So how much sensory awareness I have in my body, in addition to how I see myself in the mirror or in photos, or how I see my body when I look down. It's this whole interplay between these pieces. And so we always have the ability to, like you're saying, rewrite our relationship with our bodies. We have the opportunity to be in communities that positively reflect us, or see a video of someone that we feel like represents us and find a new way of being. And we always have that ability to reform and recreate ourselves, thankfully, because these bodies are so resilient and wonderful.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. I love that experience of the self and what's reflected back. I like that awareness. Thank you. And the interplay, just the awareness of that. And for me, body image is, it's a both and, it's not an either or. When with this interplay relationship, you know, I both absolutely adore my body, both how I look and feel and move and create within the aspects of this body, and I have effects from body image of the world around me and how I perceive I'm seen within it.
Yeah.
You know, and how I've been taught that I need to be in order to fit successfully within it. Yeah, so it's both for me and for many of us, I think.
Yeah, and like you're saying, Christina, fitting successfully, it's about survival, flat out survival. It's about maintaining what one of my mentors would say, the love and sanctuary of a relationship, and you know what we say yes to, even when perhaps we don't want to, so that we can maintain our safety in our relationships,
Well,
if we feel like
we're
that's
primal
necessary.
beings. Yeah, we're primal beings, and
Yeah.
being part of community is one of the ways we survive as humans, right? That's a very primal draw to fit into, be accepted, so that we are part of the community and therefore safer. There's safety in numbers for us.
Yeah.
And yet we are also have a higher awareness beings as well. So there's that ownership that comes from having that awareness. But I like that you just pointed out that, you know, making decisions in order to be included and safe within the whole, then, and that maybe we're not making always decisions that reflect that center of self, right? In order to be accepted within the whole, or what we perceive we have to be in order to be accepted within the whole.
Right.
And so therefore that's a segue to empowered consent and body image, isn't it? So how does our body image, our image of self, and who we have to be included within the whole and in interpersonal relationships, how does that affect our ability to give empowered consent and relate with empowered consent?
I feel that you hit the nail on the head, where if we're constantly modifying our body or expressing ourselves to the world, as we do in things of body image and in matters of body image, if we're constantly making modifications based on society, based on what others will think of us, based on the things that we've learned, if we do that in one area of our lives, how can we be sure that we don't always do it in other areas of our lives?
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, it's definitely how you anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So then that brings, you know, I think a little bit ago I was saying that it brings that consciousness, that awareness. I think each of you have mentioned your awake relationship with yourself, right? The refined awareness, the center of being, the ability to navigate the stories and the voices. It's like all of those things. We need that awareness to say, what's the voice speaking to us now? As when I'm thinking about these both ends, the aspect of me that's desperately still trying to fit in, right? I need that center of self. I need that awake relationship with myself so that I can be aware when that part of me is wanting to speak and be in the forefront, or the awake part of me, the higher me, is actually present and I can speak my consent from there. Right?
Yeah.
What do you want people to know, our viewers to know, about creating empowered consent and body image?
I mean, the first thing that I would say is that it's a practice. It's not a destination that you arrive at. It's an ongoing practice. And like Kelly was saying earlier, there's a moment to moment component of that. In addition to having conversation with your partner or partners outside of intimacy, for example, when you feel regulated, because when we feel dysregulated and when we're sort of activated or triggered in the moment, we might not have the ability to really say what we need. When our body gets activated and our nervous system gets too sort of overwhelmed in the moment, sometimes we lose the ability to speak, and that's okay. That's our body doing what it needs to do to protect, and to
Right.
take care of in those moments. And so setting aside some time for conversations outside of those more intimate moments, if we're talking about, you know, intimacy and sexuality in particular, which I work with a lot, you know, having a conversation outside of that to say, okay, here's what I know about my erotic map, and here's where I feel masterful and I feel really, or I feel empowered. And here are the places that are my challenges, you know, and it depends on the partner, of course, if we feel safe enough to have these conversations. But so I feel like it's both a moment to moment practice, and we get better at that over time. You know, just making space to slow down, you know, during intimacy, to check in, like how are we doing and how are we feeling and that sort of thing. And so having those outside conversations about it when we're regulated can be really helpful too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, working with your energy when you're not turned on or triggered. I remember one time in a relationship that had been on and offish, and we were moving back towards an on. And a moment came, and I heard the voice in the back of my head say, "So you're about to sell yourself out for this relationship." Like what? Like the answer you give right now has a ripple effect. Are you going to sell yourself out just because you're feeling really vulnerable right now? And now that you've like bonded with this person emotionally, you'll do anything you have to do to keep that bond intact? Or are you going to side with yourself right now and see what happens on the other side? You know, and it was, you know, when the voice talks and it's like very, we interrupt this broadcast right? Of a moment. And,
Yeah.
and I,
Yep. And
Those are the times.
well, and that first time when you finally don't sell yourself out, right? Like in that moment when you speak your mind to that person in power over you in your career, when you speak your mind in these relationships, that first time you do it, whether you win, lose, or draw, just knowing that you held your own, you know, that you knew you were enough. I've been reflecting back on my life. Well, gee, we've had some spare time, or and in reflecting, just a little bit, yeah, you've had time to think about some things. But the other day I came up with this thing where I was like, oh my God, I used to be like the most magical doormat ever.
Oh,
You know, just doormat. Lifting you higher, doormat. And now I can say that I've got my magic carpet and I'm writing and it's great. And I help other people get their magic carpet and ride their magic carpet. So that nobody's a magical doormat anymore.
So great.
Yeah. Yeah. And does having a positive sense of self, of body image, help you then to show up for yourself in relationship more?
Yeah, I think so. Like right now, it's just, there's so much body acceptance happening with me. You know, before we turned on live, we took a second to center together. And I'm very, very fluffy right now. My moon is happening. And well, let's say my hands found my belly. Wow, that's what it is today.
Yeah.
There is, maybe it's maturity and maybe it's the times, but we're all bounced back inside of ourselves. And this is prime time for accepting yourself. and respecting yourself
Mhm.
and sorting through a whole bunch of stuff and really coming to realize that so much of how you were operating has nothing to do with who you are.
Mhm.
And whether you meet these standards or not, it doesn't mean a thing about you.
Mhm.
You know, taking your net worth is not your self-worth.
Mhm.
You're a moment in the universe. You're like this unique moment of creation. How dare you run around thinking that your net worth is your self-worth and your value is based on your appearance? This is ludicrous.
Yeah.
And yet so very real for so many.
So many. Yeah.
Yeah. It is ludicrous. And yet it
Yeah,
really
but
takes us
and
so much
it-
time for so many people. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kelly.
it's the splash of cold water moment.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
want to repeat something that Chicava said, because I think that it's really at the core of a lot of this, for me at least, which is that so much of how we operate is not always who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, in consent, in body image, so much of my journey and so much of the journey that I recommend to others is not waiting for the moments of activation or trigger or high stakes to get in touch with my desires, yeses and nos. It's what are the little things that every single day I can make a practice with to understand, in this moment, am I doing this thing because I do it every day? Am I doing this thing because I really want to do it? Am I doing this thing because, I don't know, my friend in high school told me that if I don't do this, people will think I'm X?
Mm-hmm.
It's how do I find that compass in myself as a daily practice,
Mm-hmm.
instead of in the moment where it really counts. Because
Yeah.
actually for me, it really counts in the moments when I can breathe. It really counts to have myself in touch with that internal compass all the time, because then in moments of activation, it starts screaming at me, that compass. So if I didn't do that work of getting in touch with what does Kelly want in all the moments,
Mhm.
in the moments where I feel
Mm-hmm.
really activated, I don't know how I would find out what I really wanted.
Mhm.
In the moments where I've been very conditioned, I don't know how I would have any way to get in touch with that.
Mhm.
And it's been, it's not an easy journey. It takes us into a lot of analysis, or it takes us at least into a lot of realizing that we've been doing things that
Mhm.
are against our real desires.
Yeah.
But when we accept it, when we start to get in touch with that compass, and for many people it's different things. For me, it's my body. When
Mhm.
I got in touch with that, everything became much clearer.
Yeah.
So for me, that's in the conversation of consent.
Mhm. Yeah, that's that practice of learning
And in
to
that way,
all of us are
Love
like,
it. I
ah. I was gonna say that's the Kelly, what you're talking about, like that's the practice of learning to trust ourselves, to trust that our bodies are telling us the truth, because that's part of that upbringing that we get, where we're taught to mistrust our bodies, what our bodies are telling us. We're taught to mistrust our desires, our arousal, our fears, and so slowly, day by day, moment by moment, and not just when we're activated, yeah, in moment to moment, saying, okay, I trust what my body is telling me. And it's not about taking what our body says at face value either. It's about really taking the time to say, oh, okay, I'm going to connect with my body. I'm going to trust what my body is telling me. Okay, what's next? What then? Okay, I listen to you, take a breath, and then the next impulse and the next impulse. And we get to feel that unwinding happening in us. And like Chicava, you were talking about, like, how is my body feeling today? I'm feeling a little fluffy, like we have cycles in our bodies, and that it's that wisdom of trusting that if I slow down enough to listen to my body and trust what it is saying, he, she, they is saying, that it's going to take me on a journey. And that is the journey that's important. That's the one that allows us to get our whole brain and body back online, to reach out for what we want, or to back away from what we don't want, or to slow things down to say, what of this do I want and what of this do I not want? It's a process, you know. It's sort of like trusting that our body has these layers of wisdom.
And I find this, oh, may I see Christina going to speak. I find this to be extremely problematic in it when many of us grow up in a society in which we're taught that so many of our body's natural impulses are bad or wrong or shameful.
Yep.
I agree. And
and picking up on what,
go ahead, Chicava.
I really delayed, huh? Thank you, Christine, for that grace. Picking up on Kelly and Melissa dovetailed it perfectly in terms of asking yourself on a day-to-day basis what you want. It's kind of it's a practice, like a martial art, you know. You train yourself, you practice, you listen, you map yourself so that when it's the moment, when it's the fight, when you're fighting the big boss, you know, you've gotten through all the flunkies in the Kung Fu movie and now it's the big boss and you know where you stand, you know. That's like,
yeah. I want to clarify for our viewers. First, I just want to say, if you're just joining us, or if you just joined us a little bit ago, we're talking about body image and empowered consent, and how body image affects our ability to give empowered consent or create empowered consent. And a couple of things. Kelly was talking about when you're activated. And I want to clarify, I think when you're saying activated, you mean when you're in that place of trigger, right? When it's difficult. Because I can be activated in all kinds of ways. So here we're talking about in that place of trigger, right?
That's true, because high levels of arousal, pleasurable arousal, also can send us into a transcendent space where we can't speak anymore, like we're not speaking language anymore, we're you know, it's more about breath and body movement. And yeah. I also just wanted to say as well that I think what some of you are talking about, just being in the body, right? Listening to the body, and paying attention to our bodies. And I think when we have a really negative sense of body image, a lot of people are not even in their bodies most of the time, right? They're out here or up here, right? Or in their idea of what everyone else wants and needs and thinks they should be, right? Out here. So actually coming into and occupying your body can be a first time thing, and very difficult for a lot of people. Very difficult.
And trigger warning when it comes to, even more difficult if you have had eating disorders. I have a past with those as well. Or if you have history of sexual abuse or trauma, right? Or if you have a past of illnesses that were difficult to be in your body, a history of pain. So there's a lot of reasons beside negative body image that it's been difficult to be, or maybe being in your body. There aren't safe spaces for your particular body. You know, how would you begin to recommend to people to start these practices you're talking about? You're talking about practices to be in the body and activating your own center of self daily, to gain that center of self, to gain that awareness that you can speak from there. What are some beginning practices that feel really accessible that we can offer our viewers?
I can speak for the first practice that I did. And I don't know, it must have come to me in a dream, because it just came to me one day that like I had to start doing this thing. every night I would put moisturizer. I would set an alarm, I would put on good music, and I would moisturize my body. And I was so out of touch with my body at that point that it was so difficult to do. It was so difficult to touch it. And to take that time to do something that to me seemed like someone that loved their body would do, and to set aside time and to make that a priority and my everyday, was something that started to change my experience of living in my body. It started to make me live in my body more. And it was not easy. I can't say that it was, but and once again, we're talking like, as someone said, I heard recently the word micro practices. You know, something small that we can do to be a nice first step. That for me became something. And in moments where I don't feel a lot of self-love, I kind of think in that way. I'm like, well, if Kelly loved herself right now, what would she do for herself? And when I do the thing, it eventually starts to transmute. You know, it eventually starts to, because I'm paying that attention, I'm going through the actions.
That's gorgeous, Kelly. Thank you for that. I would even offer to our viewers to micro practice that even further, if they desire. If moisturizing your whole body is difficult, start with places that are accessible and continue moving throughout your body from there. Start with your hands or your feet or your arms, places that you can feel that self-love, and then start moving to the more challenging places to touch, allowing that success of starting. Thank you. Beautiful practice.
Yeah, it's about being our own beloved, that our primary relationship is actually with ourselves, and feeding that relationship. Treating our body as our best friend or as our lover, and really taking the time to learn our bodies and love our bodies and make beautiful food for ourselves, and just giving ourselves so much love. So we're really feeding that relationship. That practice is so beautiful, Kelly, that you started with. Oh my gosh, it's so lovely. Yeah. And that's what I talk with my clients about is, you know, what are the things that you love to do? And take yourself on a date and do those things. Do one little thing every single day, and then add in some bigger things where you're really, really loving your own body and your own heart and your own, you know, emotional body and all of that.
I love that, taking yourself on a date and being our own beloved. You know? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Finding those small things that maybe you would do for others that you care deeply for, and allowing yourself the space to do them for yourself.
Yeah, the world teaches us to be so external, and so we're
being in consideration with yourself.
Yeah.
What's one of your practices, Chicava?
Showing up for yourself. And Kelly, yeah, I see it too. I'm still really moved by what you said, Kelly, and I can't go on. I grew up at a time and had a lot of friends that battled, and honestly, I can tell you at 52, some of my friends are still anorexic. They're still fragmented. You know, so it's the gentleness. We have a lot of speak around about shadow work and that things that sound to me are very, very aggressive in how to go about it. Like, and with due cause, because people don't want to feel these yucky waves anymore. But I think that we get farther and deeper if we're gentle with it and just dig trenches and trenches and trenches into self-love. For me, I love doing my inner smile healing exercise and just moving through my body system and the way that it's changed my self-talk. You know, self-talk, like to come to a moment when you're like, hey, don't talk to yourself like that. What the heck are you doing? You know, that's like another milestone to learn to stop kicking yourself. And the body care always, especially, you know, turn your mammogram check into a worship of your own ability to nurture yourself and heal yourself in that time. And if you can't, if there's areas of your body that are hard for you to touch, hover, just hover over them and be okay with your own boundary until the day comes that you want to feather touch or you can actually grip on. But it's all right. You want to really heal it. You don't want to varnish it for the day.
I really appreciate that. I really love that that hover option and the awareness to not varnish. Yeah, don't do that. The inner smile is one of my favorite things, Chicava. I love that you brought that up. For me, the inner smile has become a total game changer for my practices. Because when I can ignite my own inner smile and soften my heart, let my nervous system know we're okay and safe right now, and then do my little affirmations or my touch or my loving myself from that place, it's a whole different place than if I'm like, okay, I have to do this, I have to change, I gotta start loving myself, I have to, the shoulds or the tightened, afraid, and triggered space that is trying to love myself desperately. From there, I don't find as much of a shift as I do when I soften into an inner smile and then do the practices.
It is for Kelly and Melissa. It's a very somatic Tao healing practice where you move through and smile into your heart, into your stomach, all through your organs and your electrical system. And at first, you do need like your little 4-year-old imaginary like the kid in you that had imaginary best friends. You need that person to do it until you're like, oh my goodness, I feel like eventually you start to feel things. And that's what I love about somatic work and the embodying of it, and how it's so inherently de-objectifying and accepting. That's what I find when I get to work with practitioners like you, Melissa. It's just a very sense of coming back to your body as salt of the earth. It's very nourishing.
Yum. And I think my inner smile is a little different, Chicava. So I love what you're talking about. I'm going to look into that practice. I just bring in some warmth. I bring in a thought of a loved one or a moment that makes me grateful and warm inside. That softens my heart. So it's just that, something that just gets that little smile going inside and out. Beautiful. And then moving from there.
It's exactly that. You just travel it through all your organs.
Yum. I'm going to try.
Does that make sense? It's exactly what you're talking about. It's grabbing onto that unconditional love, putting it in your heart. Like just, don't stop at your heart. That's all. Give it to your stomach and your spleen, your lungs, your kidneys. Yeah, you have an infinite source of it.
Yeah.
into your pelvis and your arousal anatomy and reproductive anatomy and
And
these
for the
beautiful
purpose
places.
of of creating empowered consent into our voices
Mhm,
and our self-expression,
mhm,
right? So then if we're talking about all these yummy practices to come into an ownership of our body image that represents who we are, not who we're trying to be, right? What are some practices to help us use our voices in a way that represents our desires and who we are? I
mhm.
find so many people are not speaking their truth as
Mhm.
well. So, what are some really accessible and easeful practices to begin using our voices where we maybe aren't?
That's such a great question. Yeah, because that makes me think of, how do we bring in congruence between what we're feeling and what we're saying?
Yeah.
And that is finding that alignment is so crucial. And it's so easy. And I see this even, with people I work with for a long time. It's so easy for us to default back into story and back into ideas and to disconnect from our bodies, because that disconnect, that chasm has been there for so very long. That the practice of saying, oh, I notice I'm now going into a big explanation, I'm going into a big story, and I've lost my partner, or partners in that moment, because I'm sort of going off into this other story. It's the practice of really coming back to in the moment description. So being very descriptive about what my body is feeling in this moment, and where there's warmth and where there's constriction, and where I feel the impulse to reach out for a partner, where I feel the impulse to retract perhaps from a partner, but really staying with description and out of that place of assumption or judgment or old beliefs that we're holding, that we just sort of drop into the story of, but really slowing it down to say, I'm going to unravel this belief or this assumption that I'm making right now. Like earlier, Chicava, you were talking about being with a partner or a lover, and like, I'm about to sell myself out here. Hang on a second, like, to slow down and unravel in that moment, to say, no, what is it that I actually want? And find that in my body, and then descriptively speak from that place in my body. Letting that area of my somatic architecture be the origin point for my voice. And it takes a lot of practice to slow down there, but yeah.
So,
Wow.
while I absolutely agree that is an amazing practice that you're bringing forward, Melissa, of going into description and out of judgment and assumption or story, right? I think so many people have no or don't have a lot of, or if any, experience somatically speaking, right? Or even touching into that. You said go find it in your body. So many people are not.
How do you do that? Yeah.
When we talk about practices that feel easeful and really accessible to people, what's something that our viewers could do to begin their journey to getting to where you're talking about?
Yeah.
And anyone can answer this. To begin to tap into what their body is saying to them.
I think EFT is really, really helpful. Did I come through okay? EFT is really helpful, and just finding little recipes for the tapping process, because you can take yourself as you are in it, and you're speaking through it, just the talking to yourself through it. and finding out like how these meridian points you use in it tap into you. I find, and I have some thyroid stuff that I work through, but EFT like is a simple way that anybody can Google up a recipe about something they are dealing with and tap themselves through. You know, I think that would be a fun, easy, free thing anybody could try.
Thank you. What does EFT stand for?
Oh, very good. Emotional freedom technique.
Emotional.
It's a system of just tapping along your body along particular meridian points, and you loosen conditioning. It rewires your system with you. At the process, it doesn't cause a tsunami, right? It's the process and your speed and process. It's very regulating, self-regulating.
Yum. Thank you. Yeah. So viewers, look up EFT. Check that out. It sounds really like a great starting point. Thank you, Chicava. Kelly.
For me, embodiment, embodiment and emotional release in terms of if I can witness my own emotional expression, I start to become more in touch with it and able to describe my emotions to others or to show my emotions to others. But if I can't cry to myself, so I would say something like swamping was huge for me. You put on different music by Mama Gina, and you put on different music and you express sadness, you express anger. So to take moments for me, even if it was in a more dramatic way, to learn how to express my anger with me as my witness, to learn how to express my sadness with me as my witness. Because once someone else comes in the room, other ideas come in, there's interference. So if I can get in touch with my emotional expression, if I even, I grew up acting. So even those exercises helped me so much to go, what could sadness be like in my body? What could anger be like in my body? I bring those two out because they were the most difficult for me, but it could be anything. What could pleasure be in my body? The more that I've gotten in touch with yelling alone, with sobbing alone, with all of the spectrum of what Kelly could feel alone, the more I can then bring those sides of me out around others.
Yum. Love. You call that, did you say swamping?
There's an exercise by someone named Mama Gina. And they have an exercise that is called swamping. It's a series of songs to which you do emotional release. And they're defined songs. So you have a sad song and you express sadness in the container of that song. There's an anger song and you express anger within the container of that song. And I also find having a container of time or a song has been very helpful for me to emotionally release. Because if not, I'm scared to be sad forever or angry forever. It might not end. But when you say, okay, it will be this, and when I provide structure around it, I know that I hope that it will end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me a bit of 5 Rhythms dance.
I love
swamping
too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
5 Rhythms.
I love swamping, and especially how you put it, the container, because it's like you can have your way with me, rage. This anger, this is your 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's highly recommend too.
Yeah, because that's definitely what happens, right? We're afraid to let ourselves go into an emotion because we think it's bottomless, and it's not. That's part of those body rhythms and cycles that we allow ourselves to go into anger or into sadness and express it through movement, there is something on the other side. Our body cannot stay in those states forever. So what I was going to say is it reminds me of 5 rhythms practice, where you move through flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical into stillness with musical structure support, so that you keep moving through that cycle in your body. Let your body visit each part of that map, and then you just keep moving through. And then after the dance, in stillness, you pause and you say, okay, what's here now? What has arrived in my body? And it's such a powerful practice to be able to give structure to that. And I was going to offer something more specific to speech, because you're right, Christina, it's very difficult for us to learn how to get into our bodies and to get embodied. And I work with a lot of people where that they come into my office, it is not their first language at all, you know. And so one of the first ways that I help people identify that is in their own language, you know, noticing when they say, well, I feel like you are doing such and such and so and this and that, right away, they're out of their body. And so I stop them right there and interrupt that cycle and say, what do you notice that you just said? Where did you go? I asked you what you felt, and where did you go with that? Right. And they jump right into a partner's body or into somebody else, you know. We so easily abandon ourselves. And so it's about training ourselves to say, oh, I feel an emotion. I feel a sensation. I don't feel a judgment or an assumption about somebody else, or a judgment or assumption about myself. So you can hear it in your own language, you know. And we have remnants of somatic language in our everyday speech. If we say, oh, you know, I felt such a moment of heartache there. And that's where I pause and I say, do you notice the heartbreak in your body right in this moment? And where is that? You know, when we have those powerful emotions, then we have the opportunity to slow down and feel what's happening there. But one of the easy ways that we can start to bridge ourselves back in is to notice where the direction our language is taking us.
Thank you. I really offer the practice as well of, coming into the body. I love doing things that feel really accessible. If you like to walk outside, if you go for a walk, go for a walk barefoot, or as you're going for a walk, notice 3 things you smell.
Yep.
Notice 3 things you feel. Go through your senses, right? Just identify what's happening in the moment and get as descriptive for yourself. If you're walking with a friend, play the game together, or a family member. So you start talking more and more about what you're experiencing in the moment, that your body is experiencing, not emotionally necessarily, or what you're thinking, or the stories you're telling yourself, or expecting, or perceiving, but what are you experiencing? What are you feeling right now? And to travel between your senses, your taste, touch, sight, hearing, right, smell, so that you can really begin to explore that for yourself. And then as far as speaking, I really invite people to start to speak something you wouldn't have spoken that feels just a little bit edgy. Just a little bit. Is it asking someone at the store just to give you a little bit more space instead of coming so close in line? Is it telling your partner, you know, that you want a little bit more time in the morning, or you want whatever it is? What feels just a little edgy that you wouldn't have said before, but you feel like you can say? Right. So you just feel a little bit of fear, and you succeed at it. And then keep pushing those a little bit further and further, so that you're starting to use your voice in new ways, but you're succeeding at it, and you're letting your body, your system know that you can do this and that you can be safe in it.
You know, a game changer for me at one point with two friends of mine, we did a challenge of every day to do something that was a little bit of an edge for us or that scared us, or, and I thought at the beginning, I'm like, I don't know what this could be. I have to go swim with a shark. I have to go skydiving. I have to go bungee, like something extreme. And I started to realize, I'm holding myself back from having this conversation, this uncomfortable conversation. I'm holding myself back from hitting send on that email to an employer that I really want to work for because I'm scared to be rejected. So we did this 1 week challenge and we reported every single night. We talked and we celebrated the things that we had done that were an edge. And then I did it for 2 weeks. I did it 1 week with them, 1 week alone. And I'm still all the time, trying to face those edges. So I adore that you're talking about this.
That's a great practice. I love that. And just the awareness when you dive into that of just on a daily basis, the small things that you are holding back from in your own expression and own experience. Because you're right. I think that we often think of these grand life events that we're not experiencing, but it's the smaller everyday happenings of how in ways that life could just get richer and richer and richer if we let ourselves move forward within those.
My partner did that practice for a while, and that's how I got him to start dancing with me. he started I'm going to do one thing out of my comfort zone every day. That was his language for it, and I got him to dance with me. So it's fantastic. He can do a mean figure eight, I'll tell you what.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. I just want to double check, Chicava, because of the pause. I want to make sure that you're having the space here to speak that you are desiring.
Oh yes, I feel good. I'm enjoying listening too.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Gorgeous. One of the things that I find really impactful when it comes to body image and speaking is the way that we use our voices around others about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about a couple examples? One, the way our children learn to feel about themselves by how we speak about ourselves.
Yeah.
And maybe the diets or the exercise or the this or that we put our children on, because as parents, we want them to fit within the community and be safe, right? We want them to fit enough so that they're successful and therefore safe. And yet are we damaging them by putting them into these patterns that really more support a negative self-image? The other example is self-deprecating in front of others, right? Where would you put, how do I want to frame this question? I really like to frame a positive response, or when I hear someone self-deprecating, I want to bring some beauty around that moment so that the rest of the people in the room don't go into a self-deprecation mode as well. What do you think is what's a response that we can have to lift each other up with our voices and our body image? Us and our children. So I brought both of those together.
That's such a great question. I have a 5-year-old, and I make sure that I tell her that she is beautiful, and I make sure that she hears me say that I think I'm beautiful as well, and that that I communicate to her that I love my body, and that, you know, we do a lot of movement and dance around the house. And, you know, I want to make sure that she witnesses me speaking that way about myself as well as other people. You know, I make sure that if we see someone on TV and, you know, my daughter's like, why are they wearing this, or why are they doing that? And I'll say, isn't that lovely, or isn't that creative, or isn't that, you know, I just keep all that disparaging language out of my vocabulary with her, as well as making sure I'm breathing around that too, because that it's not just what my words are saying, but how my body is communicating. So when I say I feel beautiful today, I take a big breath around that so that it's congruent for her. And because that's a challenge for us. We hold a lot of bound energy in our bodies around complimenting ourselves, and in witnessing other people as well. So bringing in more of that free flow energy, that breath energy when we're communicating these things, can bring it into that place of alignment.
Thank you. Yeah, that feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Chicava and Kelly, do you have anything here? What do you think? It's okay if you don't.
I see
I
where
don't, not at the moment.
Thank you.
I see where disparaging ourselves is we're often taught that it's a very safe way to communicate, and that to celebrate ourselves, and sometimes even to celebrate others, is a more unsafe way to communicate. So Melissa, I adore how you are raising your child, because I think it's so important. And that being said, there are two thoughts that I have. One is, earlier today, Chicava mentioned that how miraculous the body is. And that is something that, you know, no matter how someone sees themselves, we have so many functions happening in one time. So many things came together to create us in this world, existing and living right here and right now. So that's one, just I am having a couple threads that I'd like to offer. And one of my dearest friends, who I absolutely adore, when she hears me say, or when she heard me say a disparaging comment, she would say, would you talk to me like that? Would you say that to me? And it snaps, you know,
what
it
a
helps.
beautiful challenge. Yeah.
With love, with total love. But that inspires me so much.
Thank you. Yeah, lovely.
So good to have those people around us that lovingly challenge us in those ways. Yeah.
What about creating, if you have a lover that has body image challenges, what about creating consent with them? See, we often think more of male or cock-bodied people working with female or vulva-bodied people, women, having the women having the body image challenges, but that's not necessarily the truth. And body image isn't just about size or gender, like Chicava put forward earlier, right? Blonde or white skin, and so there's so many layers to body image. So what about if you have a lover that has a negative body image? How do you show up for them when it comes to creating empowered consent? Them and yourself in that relationship.
I would love to first say that if my partner if my partner does not want us to go there.
Go ahead, Kelly.
that is something very important. Thank you, Chicava. It's short, but I just want to quickly say, is the partner consenting to our exploring their body image with them? Because some people are not even at that point, and that's where it becomes very interesting too, is that if somebody is not ready to explore within a partnership an issue of theirs, I have to first give them the space to explore that issue on their own. So I just wanted to say that first. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, that it's their consent whether they want to bring how they feel about themselves forward in discussion. Yeah. Chicava, what were you going to say?
I was having trouble coming up with something, but after hearing Kelly, I thought about people's sense of shame. Sometimes I've noticed that people don't necessarily want to take you into the deep end with them, but just the ability to say that it's there is a big, big step for men, especially. In my experience. And then when they're ready to talk, it's like a geyser.
Yeah. I think my biggest, we're getting so close to time, darn, because I want to play with this a little bit. I'm leaning into it, but I think that one of the difficulties for me is if my lover will not give their true consent or tell me their true desires because they are fawning or freezing or fighting or any of the above, because they are not in their bodies and not in a place of their own desires, but rather trying to fit in or be loved or accepted or any of those things, right? So if they're not actually speaking their desires, how can I trust their answers? How can we develop a deep intimacy and connection if we're not telling each other the truth rather than right? And I've done that in my past. Fawning was something I did a lot, or agreeing to show up intimately because I thought that's what they wanted, or how I had to be or to continue that relationship with them. Right? So, but that's not truth. Those lovers couldn't trust my word because I wasn't telling the truth. And so how do you navigate that if you know that's what's happening with your lover?
Yeah, and something I work on with my clients is setting the intention to honor each other's boundaries and to say that verbally to each other, that if you have a boundary or you want to slow down, I will honor that. So verbally setting that intention together. And then if one partner sets a boundary and I'm not comfortable taking off my shirt, or I'm not comfortable with you putting your hand on my hip, or whatever that might be, that the other partner say, thank you for telling me. And that goes back to what you were saying in the very beginning, Chicava, around not personalizing the boundary, that it's the boundary being set for me. It's not a rejection against my partner in that moment, and for the partner to understand that it's not necessarily about them, and to just say thank you for telling me, and pausing and waiting for the next impulse to perhaps take us a different direction. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
I think that there's a lot in establishing a brave space within a relationship here that that we're touching, because, and I think that this is once again something that is not a moment of activation situation. It is not, I see it as more of a daily practice, more of a micro practice. The how do you feel? The check-ins, the aftercare, the things that will make someone feel safer to express when they are in a moment where they are triggered.
Mhm.
So that won't happen right there in the moment, or to make it happen right there in the moment is very challenging. So
Mhm.
how can we set up a relationship that is very empowered, where both people feel, or all people feel like they can express themselves and that expression will be accepted and
Mhm.
respected.
Love that. Yeah. Again, those practices, right? We keep coming back to those. And in micro practices, really honoring the space to create that safety to begin to rewire and express ourselves. Chicava, did you have anything to add here? We're going to wrap up, but I'd love to hear your voice if you have something you wanted to add here.
Great. I just appreciated everything everyone had to say on that piece. I'm good.
Gorgeous. Well, those of you watching, what an amazing, yummy conversation. This is the point where that we get to where I get to let you know that these amazing beings are going to let you know how they can work with you, how you can work with them. It's called the Resource Roundtable. So if you want to stick around and learn a little bit more about what each person here is up to and what offers they may have for you, this is that moment. If you don't want to stick around, that's fine. We love you and we appreciate you being here. If you do, you're very welcome. We'd love you to stay to learn a little bit more. So we only have a couple minutes, but I want you all to feel free to let everyone know how they can work with you and what you're up to if you would like to do that now. And again, you don't have to.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm excited. Next week for Valentine's Day, I'm offering a mini version of my workshop, Undoing Romanticism. It's an I am my Valentine moment where we're going to start unpacking some things. The part before you make the list about all your must-haves and deal breakers in the partner you will magnetize. This is the part before that. You know, like let's clear the foundation on that, because I feel that people are most often unhappy in relationships because of what they thought it was supposed to be and the discrepancy of what it actually is. So doing that for Valentine's Day, and also my first program for my new endeavor, Sacred Chrysalis, is starting March 8th, and it's called the Shiro Space Program. Yeah, I'm very excited. It'll be a round of 12-week cohorts. So the first one starts on International Women's Day, and I'll be doing open houses. So you can check it out for an hour for free with me via Facebook Live. We're on Zoom, and just you'll see it posted on Facebook if you follow me.
Fantastic.
Nice.
So if people want to engage in the Valentine's Day, should they just go to your contact information that's listed in the description, or do you have a link to share for them, Chicava?
Yes, you can find it in my Facebook box. And as we listen to the other ladies, I'll post a link in chat for you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yum. Sounds amazing. Kelly, Melissa, what are you two up to?
I'll go. So I actually just published a book that I'm very excited about. I actually have it right here. This is my book. I did it. It took me
whole body sex. Yum.
Yeah, Rutledge was my publisher and they were really wonderful. And so this just came out in January. And so right now my big thing is publishing the book. Um, and then going from there, I'm going to be putting together some online workshops and things like that that people can do, that I'm still kind of in the development process around that. So, but that's my big news right now.
Do you have a link to how people can buy that book?
Yeah, let's see if I can do the link on the Facebook on
Awesome.
our chat.
Come back and put it in the chat and people can check it out. But also, we have lots of contact information for you in the description. Can they contact you and get that book if needed?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is embodiedrelationshipscenter.com. And that website can lead you to more information about me. There's a page that's just dedicated to the book. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you can get the first chapter sent to you for free. And then any workshops and things like that that I have will also be on the website. So embodiedrelationshipscenter.com.
Fantastic. Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kelly, what are you up to?
Well, I also have a Valentine's Day offering. I'm teaming up with a colleague of mine, and also he's a dancer and a coach as well. And we're offering a series of packages called Tango Date. So it's for couples in order to get more embodied, deepen your relationship, dance together, express, increase romance, pleasure, everything that we can find using Argentine tango and embodiment to better connect with our romantic partner. And yeah, and then besides that, you can find out about me at findtangobliss.com. I offer free 30-minute sessions so that you can get a little taste of what I have to offer. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, I love what I do. So I'm just so happy to offer it to you and share it with the world. So thank you.
I love that. And oh, thank you, Melissa. I saw that you put that, and so did you, Chicava. Fantastic.
Just did it.
Yeah, great. I believe your contact information, your website is in the description above, Kelly, but if you want to put a little description about your Valentine's Day offer in the chat at some point, I'd love for that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for this important conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Christina and Kelly and Chicava. This was so lovely.
Thank you for hosting. Yes.
I always,
Beautiful.
oh yeah, thank you. I tend to end these with a quote or a poem. Do you all have just one moment? It's very short for me to read a quote.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Let's see. This is Nelson Mandela. There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. Nelson Mandela. All right, what a joy, absolute joy to be with all of you, both here with me and those of you watching and viewing. As always, the invitation is empowerment. Have a gorgeous, pleasure-filled, empowered day.